So, if you've been around the Linux community for any length of time, one brand of laptop that comes up more than any other is the ThinkPad line of laptops. But not just any ThinkPads. When people talk about ThinkPads, they're usually talking about older ThinkPads such as the T420 or X220. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about why older ThinkPads are so widely talked about and why any technology enthusiast should own one right now on Linux Lounge. Now, first to open up with, I think I should briefly talk about my own experiences with the ThinkPad brand. Personally, I only own the one ThinkPad, the X220, which compared to the rest of the ThinkPad community is quite a small number. People really like to collect these laptops. And with that being said, the ThinkPad X220 is without a doubt one of the best laptops I've ever used. And I use it daily and it does pretty much everything a laptop should, and it does those things very well. It's actually very portable and, has great hardware. So all in all, if you want a starting point to get into the ThinkPad brand, I would highly recommend the X220. However, you might have several questions about buying such an old machine. For example, why not just buy a modern laptop? And, isn't the X220 incredibly slow ancient technology at this point? Well, the latter question is extremely easy to answer. True, the laptop has quite old hardware at this point, but it certainly doesn't feel that way. Unless, of course, you're trying to game or do video editing or something else that needs very powerful hardware. However, everyday tasks such as web browsing, creating documents, watching videos, and other tasks you want to do on a laptop all work perfectly despite the hardware's age. In fact, you might even be able to get away with a bit of light, video editing or image editing. In fact, if you would install an SSD, you might find that the ThinkPad can be faster than a modern off-the-shelf laptop. The reason for the ThinkPad's excellent performance, even despite its age, is because hardware just hasn't evolved that rapidly since the ThinkPad's release. As well as that, though, most things that you do on a modern computer are done online, which is something that doesn't really require that much horsepower, which is how Chromebooks and other similar devices are actually able to have worse specifications than the ThinkPad. So all in all, answering the question of whether or not an older ThinkPad is powerful enough in 2020, it absolutely is, and for the price you'll pay for one, it will actually be more powerful than a new laptop at the same price point. Now, the next question to answer is what makes older ThinkPads so amazing and better than modern laptops? Because if you're used to MacBooks or other modern machines, all you probably see in a ThinkPad is some gross, old, chunky business laptop. But trust me, they're great and I swear by them. The first reason for that is really the fact that they're just put together so well, and the build quality is perhaps the best in the business. Yes, they're made of less premium materials than MacBooks or the premium machines. However, unlike a MacBook, my ThinkPad X220 actually feels very durable. And true to how it feels, it is in fact very durable. My ThinkPad has dealt with pretty much every type of assault possible, and it still feels as fresh as the day I got it. Whereas I suspect a MacBook would probably snap in two if it was under some of the strain my ThinkPad has been under. As well as that, being able to deal with damage, there's also just something ineffably satisfying about having a durable laptop. It just feels great to own something that feels well put together and can take a beating. The next reason to get an older ThinkPad is closely linked to the build quality, and that reason being user serviceability. If you buy a MacBook or some other modern machine, you might be able to at most replace the RAM. With a ThinkPad, you can replace pretty much whatever you want for the most part. You can easily upgrade the RAM, the hard drive, and some models even have socketed CPUs. As well as that, it's really easy to replace other components that go bad or get damaged. For instance, if your keyboard breaks, it's really easy to just pull it out and put in a new one. Whereas with a MacBook, that's impossible. As well as that, these machines are quite moddable and upgradable. So for instance, with my ThinkPad X220, you can upgrade the display to a 1080p panel, install better speakers made for other devices, install a Wi-Fi card from another device to enable support in Libre Linux distributions as well as macOS, and so much more. As well as that, if you want a completely free software device, it's possible to flash Core Boot or Libre Boot on many older ThinkPad models to remove the proprietary BIOS and add several new features. My ThinkPad X220, for example, has full support for Core Boot, so if you're not scared of disassembling the machine and reflashing the BIOS, that might be an option for you. So all in all, if you want a device that you can mod and tinker with as well as upgrade, I would really suggest getting an older ThinkPad model. The next selling point of older ThinkPads is also hardware related, and that is the great keyboards you get with older ThinkPads, especially the X220 and the T420 and older. Now, this might seem like a weird thing to its own category, but trust me, the keyboards on these devices are really that good. In fact, many people say the ThinkPad X220 has the best keyboard of any laptop, and honestly I'm inclined to agree. Even coming from using a mechanical keyboard on a desktop, it feels great. Has really good travel for a laptop and gives a nice tactile response. As well as that, it's comfortable for long typing sessions. Compare that to the awful keyboards you get on a modern laptop that feel like you're smashing your fingers into solid plastic, and it's clear to see that the ThinkPads really do come out on top in this regard. In fact, the keyboards on older ThinkPads are so good, people have tried to mod the newer ThinkPads to take the older keyboards. So all in all, I would say that the fantastic keyboards are really the reason to buy an older ThinkPad model. They're that good, and I promise you will not find a better keyboard on a laptop. Now for our next reason to buy an older ThinkPad, we have the amazing software support. ThinkPads are most famously very well supported on Linux. However, they can run so much more than Linux very well. For instance, did you know both the ThinkPad T420 and X220 can run the newest version of macOS perfectly? They can also run Windows 10 perfectly too. However, as I previously said, they are most famously very well supported on Linux, and if you install Linux on an older ThinkPad, it's very unlikely that you will run into hardware issues as they're just so well tested. You can even swap out the Wi-Fi card and run a Linux distribution that has only free and open source software, and it'll work perfectly. So all in all, if you want a device to run Linux, an older ThinkPad may just be the device you're looking for. And finally, I'd like to talk about probably one of the best things about older ThinkPads, the absolutely amazing value for money. Since they're old business laptops, there tend to be a lot of them that are just being cleared out that can be had for bargain prices usually. For example, you can easily get a ThinkPad X220 for less than £100. Maybe a bit over if you want the model with the i7 processor. The same thing holds true for the T420. The truth of the matter is that these machines just are not considered desirable by most people, so they can usually be had for cheap. Or at least they weren't considered desirable before the Linux community started pointing out how great they are. But even then, the prices haven't gone up all that much. Just make sure you buy one from an individual selling them rather than, a reseller, because sometimes they will overprice them a little bit. But with that being said, if you look around enough, you will definitely find an older ThinkPad at a bargain price. So all in all, those are the reasons why you should get an older ThinkPad. Personally, I'd recommend you get an X220 or T420 because they're the best balance between what makes a ThinkPad great and performance. However, the X230 and the T430 are also good options if you don't want the fantastic ThinkPad keyboard, and also anything older than the X220 or T420 should also be a good option if you know what you're getting into. But with that being said, I think that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked this video, please consider following the link in the description to check out my channel on LBRY. If you're already on LBRY, consider leaving a tip as it really helps the channel out. But with that said, that's it for today's video, and I will see you in the next one.